but kudos to everybody. So Hark, you just shared with me before class started that video you let me share in class last week. How many hits did you get? 13,000. Wow. Awesome. Great job. Great job. And the one you have going now, you did a second one on Saturday and you're to what? 4,000? Hey, not too shabby. That's awesome. I love hearing that. So practice that and make certain that you are creating that content calendar and everything you need to be consistent in your social media. If that's going to be one of your main tools, then go for it. And remember, we talked about also podcasts and YouTube and Keanu. I'm so grateful that he was here on Thursday because he shared some great information about how he uses YouTube and what he's learned in using that. So today, now we're going to step into the part of the course that we talk about transactions. You know, everything was leading up to this. How do I talk to buyers? How do I talk to sellers? How do I get them? How do I market to them? And then how do I do the marketing and the social media and all of that? We've been leading up to this. We're going to talk about ready to make an offer. Because here's the thing I want to prepare you for. It's very difficult to write an offer in like less than an hour. Even experienced agents can be challenged with that. And it's not because they don't know what they're doing. It's because there's so much information and documents that you have to harness or create. I see Ashley's shaking her head because she's been through this. Ashley is under contract with a buyer. She's under contract with her listing for that buyer. So she's experiencing both sides right now. And she's probably in the maximum paperwork because she has both transactions going at one time, which is awesome and a lot because there's so many details. So one of the things you need to really learn is what all do I need to gather if I'm going to have to write an offer, and what can I do in advance? What can I do in advance? So we're going to go through this. I gave you the student manual, and then I gave you the cheat sheet, like the checklist for ready to make an offer that Linda and I have put together. It's one of the power tools. So it's the down and dirty of this is what I need to write an offer. But remember, just like I said, there's a lot of prep work you can do so that when you have to write an offer, you've already got some of this done, or you know what you need and you're going to be like this, checking it off instead of like, because I don't know about you, but when I get stressed and panicked, my mind goes completely blank. That's why I need checklists, because I'm like, what do I need? I'll go completely blank. So when we talk about ready to make an offer, there's a lot that goes with it. Okay, what comes first? Wait a minute. It jumped. It hesitates and then it goes crazy. Here we go. Okay, don't, oh, yeah. Has a little delay. There we go. Okay, I'm not touching. What do you have to have in place first? Well, before you show any properties, you have to have this, correct? Exclusive buyer agency. Has everybody looked at one? Has everybody filled one out? You have to practice that. Because sometimes, how much notice did you have before your buyer said they wanted to buy?
With these guys, it was like really fast, so I took like a paper one and we like signed it on top of a trash.
But on the trash, yeah. But it wasn't like months that you've been talking to them, right? Was it like a week or a couple of days?
It was a couple of days.
Couple of days. You think there's gonna be this, that somebody's gonna say to me, Ellie, I wanna buy a house. I wanna buy it in 6 months or a year. Well, that'll happen, yes. But that's not how they all happen.
I have some new guys that I just got on Friday night. And they're like, well, just within like the next year and a half, okay, here's the deal, that we're actively looking, like we would have all of our ducks in a row. Because if you say that, and then you're gonna find one you're in love with, that's like a block away from your new grandbaby.
And you're gonna be all over it, and you're gonna turn that timeline upside down and say, we want that.
I'm like, you gotta get your lending, you gotta do all those things and have all of our stuff signed, so then it's just. People working, it's seamless.
So this has to be signed, and then when are you supposed to get that agency disclosure in front of them? As soon as possible, as soon as you start doing any agent talk with them, or they start talking to you as if you're an agent, and also especially if they start disclosing financials to you. You better be telling them about agency. How comfortable are you all in describing agency? I find it the most awkward thing and confusing in the beginning. What are you? Being a part of this brokerage, what are you automatically in representing a buyer or a seller?
Designated.
If you have a signed agreement, you're a designated agent. You're either a designated listing agent or a designated selling agent. Notice I didn't say buyer's agent because that's not what the contract says. The contract actually says if you're a buyer's agent, you are a selling agent, and that's kind of confusing when you read. First time I read the contract, I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it is the buyer's agent. It's legal talk. So make sure, and then just go ahead and give them both for Kansas and Missouri. Because even if they say, oh, we're gonna only look in Kansas, those are most likely the people that'll start looking, oh, but we saw this one, can we go see, that's Missouri. So go ahead and be proactive and have them initial and date that. And that's easy to do, but you need to be comfortable in explaining what agency is. What's transaction broker and when does that occur? I'm gonna close this door. Can anybody share with me? When does that occur? When would you be a transaction broker?
When you represent, or I think it's when you represent with the buyers and the sellers.
With signed agreements. That is not a buyer that comes to your listing on an open house, a sign call, or an internet lead. You cannot make them a client and turn into a transaction broker because they were not yours from the get-go. And it's pretty rare that you're going to have a buyer that wants to buy one of your listings unless you're a team and you have numerous listings, then it's more common, like tailor-made team. Especially when Leo just did buyers. And Chad just did listings, well, he still just does listings, but now Leah does listings with Newville. It was not uncommon for them to be transaction broker because they had so many listings.
So can you tell us a little more like what that looks like? So I was talking to another agent that had that happen this weekend. And so I understand that she became a transaction broker when her buyers who, like, they were her buyers to start with, and then they also were looking in the same area where she had the sale, and so it just worked out really serendipitous. But so then, what are like her benefits essentially? Like, is she getting a 3% on both sides, or like, how does that? That's what I'm.
No, that's a great question. And this is something that you can choose or choose not to do. This is where if that occurs, it does say in both of the agreements, the listing agreement and the buyer's agency, it already says in there, I could be a transaction broker. So you need to be explaining that to them when you're doing your consultations and not when it happens. You need to remind them. So what she probably did was the minute the buyer said, hey, I do want to see your listing, then she was probably telling both the buyer and seller, hey, if this moves forward, then I'm going to have to change roles like we've discussed. This is that rare occasion where I will have to change my role from being your designated agent for each of you to being a transaction broker, and that means I go neutral. I become Switzerland.
And so would it be like fair to say that in that type of a case? The buyers, if they're like desperate to get into that house, they're like, sure, great, but the sellers can be a little nervous.
Well, that's why you have to then confirm with them again, because there's an addendum that will go with the contract to say, hey, remember we talked about this, that I could be a transaction broker? Well, it's the real deal now, and you both have to agree to it in writing again. Because when you first agreed to it, you probably didn't feel like it was anything real that was gonna happen. And now that it's really happening, both parties have to agree. Now, in your agreements, it should, in your listing agreement, it should have said, how much do you charge for having both sides? No, it doesn't. It actually says an unrepresented. It will always be negotiable with the contract, so it's the agreement you have with the buyer.
So,
Which if you had in, say, for example's sake, you had 3% in there as a buyer's agent, then even if they come and you change roles in their transaction broker, they're still responsible for the 3%. You're probably gonna ask for it in the contract. And then it's up to the seller whether they're going to accept that and pay that.
so you could stand to, I mean, say you charge like 3% across the board, more or less. So you could stand to make 6% on a sale if you're.
You should.
Yeah, sure.
You should get full commission on both sides, but again, buyer's agency part is going to be negotiable unless the buyer steps up and says they're gonna pay your commission no matter what. Make sense? Now, and then you go neutral. That means you cannot counsel, you can't give advice. And I'll tell you, I never went to transaction broker. Again, this will be a choice for you. If I had a buyer, and it only happened a couple of times, if I had a buyer who saw, and I explained I have a listing that might be something they'd be interested in. And I said this, if I take you to this house and you walk in, you think this is the one, then I'm going to need to refer you to another agent, and I have several that I would recommend. I got a referral fee. And they got their own representation. So for me, yes, maybe I lost a little money, but I would tell you, here's how I sold it with my sellers. I say to my seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, no matter what, even if one of my buyers is interested in your listing, I will always be your designated agent because you're paying my commission, and I believe you deserve representation in that entire transaction, and sellers loved it.
That's what feels, that's what I'm a little, that's what I was just kind of like. how
So
does
you
this
get
work?
to choose, as a business owner, Ashley, you get to choose how you're going to do that. Here's the other thing I knew about me. If you've been around me long enough, you know I do have some opinions. And I am not shy to tell them. But I thought, in a transaction broker, I gotta zip my lip. And if I see a client making a wrong negotiation, and I can't tell them, oh no, don't do that during inspections, do this. And I have to just zip my lip. I don't think I could have done it. I don't think I could have stayed quiet. So you have to ask yourself, can you be neutral? And some agents here handle transaction broker beautifully, beautifully. I was not one that thought she could. So that was a business decision for me, and then I used it as a marketing advantage. So,
You showed your
Hey, Kristen.
you show it.
professionalism, you're yourself.
Yeah, and I actually, I'll never forget that, that I had a buyer who said, you know, I so respect that you did that. And they stayed my buyer. They stayed, I mean, they gave me referrals and everything, even though I referred them to another agent to handle that transaction,
Because you were looking, nervous.
looking out for everybody's best interest. And then I want to have that pre-approval or proof of funds before we go out shopping. Remember what my script is? you're gonna push me to go see a house, I'm gonna say, okay, Tyler, I'll go show you one. And that's all I'll go show you, but here's the promise, Tyler, you have to promise me, will you make a promise?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the promise, you have to promise me this one house I'm gonna show you, you cannot fall in love with it, can you do that?
Yeah.
And they usually laugh. They're kind of like, yeah, no, and then I say, no, Tyler, I'm serious. Because we are in no position to win that house without this. We're in no position, especially in this market. How many offers did you have on yours?
5.
5.
We would have gotten more, but I told. X amount.
Yeah, yeah.
And max.
You had people interested in making an offer, but they couldn't beat what you already had on the table. So I'm not gonna break your heart. And I also know if we go see a house that you can't afford, no other house in your price range will probably look as good. And you'll compare every house we see to that house. I mean, how many of us fall in love with something that's expensive?
Oh, on tour every week.
Live here. I can't afford to live here.
My husband has started driving down the road and then he's finding, what about that one? So I looked it up and I remember, yes. Because I know reason for it. He seems to forget, so I'm excited.
You have to remind him, right? So here are the documents you have to have before you go out shopping. Here are the documents you're gonna need for an offer. So remember, the offer is not just the sale contract. It's a lot of documents in addition to the sale contract. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Remember, like I said, it's gonna take you a while to amass everything and get it ready, get it filled out, get it correct and reviewed before you send it out for signatures. So you've got to be realistic in how fast can this be done? And if you haven't practiced writing contracts, you haven't practiced not move, when you come to us as coaches, we're gonna say, you believe in miracles? Because that's what you're asking right now. You're asking for a real estate miracle. And you could actually lose that dream house for your buyers because you weren't prepared. Now, we'll help you any which way we can, but we're only so good. And we're the coaches and Linda is pretty amazing. But again, I don't know if we're to miracle level. We're close. We're really close. So you need the residential real estate contract. You're gonna have to show when you submit that offer, proof of funds or pre-approval letter. Do not be sending an offer over without those, even though, how many days does it say in the contract you have if it's a cash offer for proof of funds? 5. As a listing agent, you know what? I'm gonna counter back. If you don't send the proof of funds with your offer, I'm gonna counter back and say, we won't consider your offer until we see a proof of funds. Because here's what I know about cash buyers. Sometimes they're banking on something closing here to have the cash for this. So they really don't have the cash. I wanna see the cash. I wanna see the bank account, I wanna see the financial statement, I wanna see whatever to show me they have that money right now, not later. Make sense? So although the contract says 5, that's why you've got a cash buyer, and guess who will push back the hardest on giving you proof of funds are cash buyers. Well, I got it. Well, I don't have to show it. They can be some of the hardest and the most difficult because they're like, well, I don't be questioned that I have this or not. Well, you're gonna have to show the money. In commercial, you don't even get to see the property until you show proof of funds in commercial real estate. Because they're not gonna waste their time on you. Earnest money check or wire transfer, electronic transfer. There's some Like my husband just went under contract last week. He has a buy and a sell on a former client. And she wrote a check. How many days does, the buying side have to deliver Ernest check or wire? How many days in the contract?
3
Three.
business days?
3 business days. No, 3 calendar days.
Oh,
Sorry. It's calendar days. Almost everything in the contract is calendar days. So think about if it's if you're going under contract on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you've got to get it in. Or the next paragraph says, if it's not delivered in time, that's what the seller can do. Cancel the contract unilaterally and kick you to the curb. Do you want to tell your buyer, I'm sorry, I wasn't fast enough, or I didn't push you enough to get that transfer in, that your Ernest in? And the seller just informed me another offer came in and they've canceled unilaterally and kicked us to the curb. Do you want to have that conversation? It's a hard conversation. Seller's disclosure. You, as a buyer's agent, if you're the buyer's agent, and also the listing agent, before you list the home, you have to read that in detail. I got burned big time when I was new. I just seen that all the boxes were checked and I didn't really pay attention to all of the boxes. There was a very important one. It was checked, but I didn't check which box, the yes or the no. Had to do with the floodplain. I missed it. I listed the house. First showing. Kristen, you tell me what floodplain. I'll give that to you. Holy crap, right? That meant, that wasn't just a small mistake on my behalf, and my sellers didn't tell me verbally. They were in the floodplain. They marked it on the seller's disclosure. I didn't ask the right questions. You know what it meant? Not only did I not know about it and have all the information on it, it also meant we priced their house wrong. Guess by how much, what percentage we priced their house wrong, because I didn't know and I wasn't aware and I didn't notice that we were in a floodplain. And guess what percent off of market value of the homes in that subdivision that were in floodplain area? Guess how much we were off?
15%.
Do you think that was a big deal? That was a big screw up. Big screw up. I've seen buyer's agents not read through it in detail and ask the right questions. Floodplain. And then get all the way through inspections and say, oh, what about this floodplain? It's disclosed. Nobody is hiding it. And their buyers didn't know, and they didn't know. And they wanted to try to get out of the contract. You have to look at that with a fine tooth comb and then some. Because do you think your buyers read every single line of that? They don't. They're just excited. You put all this in front of them and they're like, where do I sign? Unless they're an engineer type, and then they'll probably look at everything. Lead-based paint disclosure, if applicable. What's the date? Say that loud. 1978 or before, you need the lead-based paint. Any MLS supplement documents, make sure you're looking at all the documents. Sometimes it's just an offer outline of who that listing agent, if they have a transaction coordinator, who their title company is. It's just an information. Sometimes it's actually additional documents that must be signed and included with your contract. So make certain that you're looking at that. Those are the basic ones. Those aren't even the additional addendum that we can layer on there. Then we have required documents that are internal documents. Do not submit these with your offer or you'll be screaming, hey, look, I'm new. And that is your estimated expense worksheet, buyer's exclusive buyer agency contract, and our company franchise disclosure addendum. Has everybody practiced a buyer's estimated expense worksheet? Here's something that you should have done when you did a consultation with your buyers is filled out a preliminary one, once you know what they're pre-approved for. Do that then, so that when you're writing an offer, do you know what I see you guys doing? You will put off this form when you're writing an offer because you don't think you need it. Do you know it's actually required by license law that you are filling it out and presenting it to the buyer at the time that you're writing the offer and before they sign it? It's required of you. And because you haven't practiced it and it's all numbers, I hated it. I'm not, believe me. I tried to avoid it like the plague until I understood it. And how to fill it out. So Linda will be doing, the week of May 19th. On Monday, she'll do miscellaneous contracts, so all the addendum and amendments. And then on Wednesday, no, it'll be next month that she'll do the buyer's estimated and seller's estimated. Yeah, I'm sorry. She'll do the agreements on Wednesday of week of the 19th. But please practice this and have one already done with the estimate of the taxes and the insurance. So all you have to do is tweak it when you're actually writing an offer. Does it make sense? That's something you should do in advance, and it shows your buyers what their estimate that they could be bringing to the table. And that's where you're getting most of this information from the lender. Okay? That's why you want to ask for a mortgage worksheet or a good faith estimate from the lender. They have to provide that to the buyer when they start working with them, so that a buyer knows what their estimated costs are to buying a home, besides just the down payment, because most buyers are not aware. And then, okay, so the company franchise, that is disclosing that one, that we're a franchise, which we must disclose to consumers, and two, who do we have business interests with? So insurance, the loan company, we've got to let others know we have a business interest in those businesses. That used to be part of our contract, that company disclosure. Franchise disclosure used to be part of the contract, a document that we submitted, because usually both sides had to sign it. Now it's just usually just office has their own. First steps, call the listing agent. Do not, please do not sit down to write this offer without calling the listing agent. Or texting them, or emailing, or calling them again, and texting them again. Be politely persistent, because you need to know what's going on with that property. So another instance of Kristen being burned when she was new, I share all my painful moments with you. Here was one. I got a lead. These buyers wanted to live in a specific subdivision, which is pretty unusual. Most people want to be in an area, but very few are like, we have to have a house in this subdivision. It's over by Shawnee Mission South. It's a walled and gated community. There are not very many houses in there. And so there was one on the market. I went and showed it to them. We saw it 3 times. That's when you could. And, the listing agent never called me, and this is when I was ignorant and didn't know that I should be reaching out to the listing agent, and I thought, well, I shouldn't show them my cards that we're gonna make an offer. That is a wrong mindset. Well, I'll just tell you that, did not do. So I sit down with my buyers, we write an entire offer, I call to submit. That's what the listing agent says to me. Oh, we just accepted an offer. Did you, we showed the property 3 times, didn't you think we were kind of interested? And wouldn't you have wanted to see what we might, if we were gonna offer something, so that you could have gotten the best offer for your sellers? Obviously not. Guess what the buyers did? They fired me. Said, how did you not know that? How did you not know that they were talking them? I was like. So. You need to call the listing agent, ask them what's going on. What's the most important things to the seller in the offer? They might tell you, they might not disclose anything, and then some of them can't keep their mouth shut. They were over disclosed and they will not do their fiduciary duty, but that's not your fault. You need to know, are they any other offers? And please, if you're a listing agent, do not lie, just say, we have no offers in hand, we do have interest, or I've had 2 agents say that they may be writing offers. Do not lie and say I have offers if you do not. We live in a tiny world, it will come back and bite you big time. Complete a CMA. It's part of your job to let your buyer know what are values in that neighborhood, and are they buying extremely high? Or are they right in the market? You've got to do that. Discuss with the buyers, because you need all of this information from them. How much they want to offer. You can give recommendations, but remember, at the end of the day, it's up to them. What's the highest they want to pay? I actually want my buyers stretching themselves in case there are multiple offers. I want to have taken them to where they would be most comfortable, the highest they'd be most comfortable. And I would have talked about different strategies, like an appraisal waiver and in its present condition. I would have already talked to them about those options. They might not remember everything I said, but I would have already talked about, so I could gauge their risk level or their risk aversion. They might have said, no, we don't want to do any of those, and we can't go over list price. Then you're probably, if they say they can't go over list price, you're probably showing you houses too high, price too high, especially in hot neighborhoods. Does that make sense? Earnest money deposit, suggested amount, recommend a minimum of 1%. Deposit timing, remember, 3 days. It shows commitment. If you really want to show, remember, it's no skin, it should most likely be no skin off the buyer's nose, because they get credit for that unless it's non-refundable. Then it'll go to the seller side. But that is a credit to the buyers. So if they can look more generous in the earnest money, that might differentiate themselves.
So they need them to cash immediately.
Exactly, exactly. In a competitive market, a larger earnest deposit can make it, your offer stand out. Closing in possession, always ask the listing agent, does the seller have a preference? My husband, like I said, just went under contract with a buyer, and then she's also selling her house. So she went under contract on her buy, and so she had a specific date and when she wanted her house to close, so she could go ahead and move into the house and close on the one she's already under contract. And so he had, I think he had 4 offers, and one of them couldn't meet that. They wanted to close a month later, and that just wasn't going to work for her. And the others were higher. Problematic dates. Please, please. Do not put the closing date as the first or the last day of the month. Those are the worst times and the busiest times that you can be hitting a mortgage company and a title company. And they're running on crazy. Also, look at holidays. Do not just say, okay, today is May 6th, we'll make it, June 6th. Is that a Saturday? Did you look? Can you close on the weekend? Is it a holiday? Did you look? So don't automatically just do it a month. And also, did you ask the lender, can we get it done in 30 days or less? You don't make that decision, the lender does. So make sure you're talking to them about that. And you should have been talking to them about that before you are ever out writing offers. That's information you need to know. Check for the holidays. Those will sneak up on you. I never, on a 3-day Memorial Day and Labor Day, also Martin Luther King Day, I would never do a closing on a Friday or a Tuesday after a 3-day holiday. Too many places have staff off during the holidays and could be lightly staffed on that Friday and that Tuesday. So if anything goes awry, you don't have them fully staffed. Closing costs. What's the buyer need? Does the buyer need to ask for closing costs? That might not be a winning item, depending on how competitive. But if it's a house that's been on the market for a while and there are no other offers, then maybe you would have that opportunity. But also, is your buyer going to be asking for your commission to be paid? Remember, it's all negotiable, and really all the seller wants is, what am I gonna net after all these things that the buyer's asking for? Negotiation strategies. Remember, the market that you're in is gonna make a difference on what you're gonna ask for or can ask for, or what you're gonna offer. The more competitive, that's where in its present condition, the appraisal waiver, all those come into factor. Might be some strategies you wanna put on your offer to sweeten it. Not exclusionary and not expedited. What's the addendum that ups your amount? Thank you, escalation. I had the E. And my husband had those on like almost all the offers. Well, 2 of the 4. Is the buyer willing to, here's where they're offering, and then they willing to go up here in like $1,000 or $2,000 increments? That could be another tool. So you've got to know the tools. You've got to be in good relationships with the lender and know what closing cost estimates are if you're going to ask for them. And again, use that worksheet to make certain that you know what the costs are. Talk to them about a home warranty. Even if they're not going to ask the seller to pay for it, please do not skip those conversations with your buyers. Because if it's an older house and has older systems, even if the inspections go well, it could be something that, especially first-time home buyer, do they have the money to pay and replace an air conditioning unit? Probably not. They put all their money together just to get in the door for the house. They probably don't even have moving costs. They're going to do their own moving, right? Inspection period. This is not, I say request 14 days. This is not the market to do that. 10 days is the default in the contract. Now I'm seeing a lot of people just say 8 days to try to make it down. Pardon?
We have 4.
You had 4.
This is intense.
That is intense to try to get all the inspections done in 4 days, because remember, the whole house inspection is kind of like a general practitioner. They may say to you, you need to go to a specialist. Like you need a roofer in, you need a foundation person in, right? So it's hard to get all that accomplished in a small amount of time.
But,
Yes. Morning, Angel.
but if it makes, but let's say you could align everybody in the 4 days, does it make your, doesn't it make your contract look much better?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying that you wouldn't do it or shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, know that crunch is hard.
I had several that were like, so submitted their offers and said, inspections pre-scheduled for Tuesday at 5 p.m.
I did that all the time as a buyer's agent. Even in a buyer's market, I would say, here, my buyers are so excited about this house. We already have our inspections penciled in for Monday at 10 a.m. It was very impressive. And I knew I could save a slot because this time of year, inspectors can be crazy busy and your favorite inspector, remember, you can't only suggest one, just no less than 3. Added inclusions. Yes, you can ask for the refrigerator. Yes, you can ask for the washer and dryer. You cannot ask in the contract for a riding lawnmower. You cannot ask for furniture. No personal property besides the refrigerator, washer, and dryer. None. The lender will say to you, no, we are not lending money so that you can get a sofa. If you default on this house, you're gonna take that personal property with you. And we won't own it, but we will have helped finance it. Absolutely not. If your buyer sees things in the seller's house that they love, tell them first, we're gonna buy the house. We're gonna get under contract. Because we're not gonna muddy that water. I sell houses, not furniture. I see this happen too many times with new agents, that they're putting in the garden statuary, the riding lawnmower, the urns at the front of the house. No, stop it. The lender will then smack you and say no. And then you pull like, oh, you got your buyer's hope up. Expirations, what's reasonable? It depends on the market. 24 hours, make it no later than 6 p.m. to expire. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. We're not making good decisions late at night. There's no reason to do that to yourself. Doesn't have to be a pure 24. Do nothing later than 6 p.m. I see people negotiating at 11 p.m. at night. That's ridiculous. Who makes good decisions? And that means you all should never have a glass of wine or a cocktail. And have a clear mind because you could be negotiating. Additional terms and conditions. Is there anything that you need to put in those terms? Such as is the removal of a dead tree. That's really probably not, if it's out in the yard, it's not gonna come up on an inspection unless it's endangering the house. But that might be something your buyer wants. Information needed. It's all listed on the checklist, ready to make an offer. So go through all of that, the legal names, all of it. Can you see why you're not gonna write an offer in an hour? You got to know who is the listing agents, what is their agency role. Don't assume all listing agents are designated agents. They're not. Some are sellers agents, depending on their brokerage formation. Common pitfalls, you really can't see it. Missing signatures. Incomplete financing. Vague contingencies, missing addenda, and unrealistic timelines. Those are your biggest pitfalls. Okay, all right. Gonna wrap it up there. I am not giving you any homework. Thursday is bread day. I know, but get to see as many of you, there is such an amazing experience. We have so much fun giving back to the community. And we're so excited about being at Restart this year. So if you haven't signed up yet, please, 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 you'll have terrible FOMO if you don't come.
Who's coming from here?
Yes.
I want to.
Come then. Come. We'd love to have you. It's not in there yet.
Where you serve? How are you, Tracy? This is what I'm getting on my. Yeah, so that's the first time I'm the next day. That's, so the app was redone. You know, redone.